am so excited to have you back on the show. I can't believe that it's been 4 years. I can't imagine that time goes as fast as it does. But you were on the podcast back in 2021, and I am so excited to have you back. Thanks for joining me.
Of course. I'm so glad to be here. And again, yes, same. I can't believe that was the last time we spoke. It felt like it was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's how it feels every time I talk to someone. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I feel like we just did that and it was 3 years ago at least. So thanks so much for coming back on. Tell me, just so in case listeners don't have that episode fresh in their mind, tell me a little bit about you and Spring 3 and now your Pilates podcast as well.
Yes, that's right. So I'm Seran Glanfield. I'm the founder of Spring 3 Studio Business Consulting. I've been coaching and consulting studio owners for over a decade. And the majority of my studio owners are in the Pilates space because before I became a consultant, I was a Pilates teacher. And before that, I worked in finance and marketing. So I essentially married those two worlds together to do what I do now. And I think shortly after we spoke, or right around we last spoke in 2021, I launched the Pilates Business Podcast. And it has had weekly episodes ever since it launched and has brought me to have conversations with so many interesting people who are part of the industry, which is one of I think the most fabulous things about having a podcast.
Oh, it definitely is.
Totally. And today I get to work with a wonderful group of studio owners and support them as they build their businesses to the versions of success that they want for themselves. And what I mean by that is that I don't think that there is one way or one type of successful business out there for studios. I think that we all come to this world and come into this entrepreneurial movement world with, an idea for what we want to do. And so I'm simply here to help make sure that you can follow through on that and build it into something that is fulfilling and also profitable.
I love that so much because I say over and over again, like teacher training can't cover everything. And I know that a lot of teachers, they'll teach for a while and then they'll decide they want to set up their own space. They want to have their own thing where they get to make all the rules. And it's a great desire, but like the making it happen is not always super duper clear. And it's not something that is necessarily intuitive all the time. So I love that you have this really incredible resource for business owners to make their business work, because we know that Pilates already works. Like it's not a question of the Pilates, but like
Right.
Sometimes the implementation of the studio is like, it's not an easy thing to do, certainly. And so I really appreciate that you're there offering that guidance.
I have to say, I love what I do because I get to help other people to, live out what they really, that idea that they have and what they want to achieve and what they want to build. It's incredibly creative. And sometimes, we're not, like you said, we're not taught how to be entrepreneurs. And I think in any industry, really. And so, if I can help you navigate that a little bit simpler and easier and with a bit more clarity and direction and without wasting energy, time and money, then that's just better for everyone, right? Because that means that everyone's moving and everyone's, helping other people to move. And that's what we're all here to do.
Oh my gosh, yes. And tell me about the Pilates Business Podcast. First of all, humongous props to you for having weekly episodes for that long. Like that is a significant accomplishment.
Yeah.
It is not easy. From one podcaster to another, I can tell you that is a lot of effort and like consistency on your part. So like huge props on that. But tell me a little bit about how it started and how it's evolved and changed over 4 years.
Well, yeah. And I will say there are some weeks where I am like scrambling at the last minute to record an episode. Like last week I was, the last couple of weeks I had been really sick and I kept putting it off because I kept thinking I cannot do this with how I sound right now. Is that terrible congestion? So there are certainly some weeks where it is, the last minute doc situation. And then there are other, but I try very hard to have a bit of a plan and to work ahead of time. And the reason, I think like many of all businesses or ideas or things that we want to get to, I think I had the idea and thought about it initially in like 2016 or 2017. And I didn't launch it until about 4 years later. So that tells you, the time frame. And I was at the point where it was, we had been through the COVID shutdowns and I was, I think in a place where I just had truly seen the power of community. Because during that time, I was able to sort of pull together all of my contacts, all of the people in my world that I had worked with or gotten to know over the years, to talk about how to get through all of those challenges that we faced at that time from a business perspective. And I just was feeling that there was a gap for this type of information, and how, I saw firsthand how needed it was during that time. And I felt like it would be doing a disservice to our industry and our community if I didn't share something at least about what we have seen and are learning at that time. And so that's really what really kicked me into gear, as it were. And like I said, since then, it has been, I have had people on the podcast, and I do weekly episodes. I have interviews with studio owners. I have interviews with software companies. I have interviews with branding experts. I have interviews with meta ads experts, with mindset coaches, with, anyone who has an association to the industry. And that's my kind of prime, that's that kind of the filter, and that share their insight and on what they're seeing. And I think within this industry, we do only see sort of a small piece of the pie. And so it's always fascinating to meet people who are in a kind of different part of the pie, right? And have those conversations. And the feedback that I get from teachers and studio owners is overwhelmingly positive, even when I sometimes have people on that I think to myself, ooh, this might ruffle some feathers, or not sure whether this is really, but yeah, it's always, I think, insightful to hear other people's perspective.
Because we definitely have the Pilates piece down. Like, we understand the exercises and like class programming and all the stuff that goes into teaching the classes. But when you kind of go beyond that role of just the teacher, and now you're an owner and you have employees and you have, all these systems to do payroll and like all of this stuff that needs to happen. There are I love that you keep it central to Pilates, because that's definitely your target audience. But the fact that we all have to use some form of scheduling software, and we all have to have a studio website, or, if we have funnels to get people into programs, like all of the sales piece that goes into it. So you've identified a massive gap, and I'm so glad that your resource is out there to, at least start to point people in the right direction about things that you may not even have considered when you were starting, and said like, oh yeah, I want my own space. And it's like all of this stuff comes with it too.
Right. I think sometimes it's like, okay, I just need a website and my pricing, and that's it, and that's okay. And maybe a little bit Instagram, maybe. And I think, that as you embark on that journey, you discover and learn a lot. And I think the people that make it all the way through are the people that are supposed to be business owners. I'm not sure that it's for everybody, because it does require a lot of different, not even just information or knowledge, but what I think, one of the things that I've learned from coaching studio owners for well over a decade, and having many more conversations than that, there's all the people who got in touch and wanted to talk about it and then never actually went and followed through opening a business, is that there is, it does take a certain type of character, right? And there is a certain sort of skill set that is going to support being successful in business. And some people, you can have it to some degree quite naturally. Some people learn it over time. And I think that, we have to also be aware of some of those other things that are needed. So that's things like being actually quite disciplined with our time, being able to communicate quite well, are all kind of skills that if you don't have them, you will need to learn them to really be able to run a successful business. There's many more, but there's that element of also learning as you go, and being open to learning as you go, and open to evolving yourself and your skill set. I think is also one of the big sort of factors to determining a successful outcome.
And I know COVID, we talk about a lot because that was such a massive shift for business owners, but at all times, you're going to have to pivot in your business or adapt or change. And that can be something that's scary, I think, for a lot of people. Like, we crave stability. And so being able to make changes and adaptations when things aren't working. Like maybe you come up with this great plan and then it doesn't go the way that you expect to, and you can't just throw everything out and all of that effort. I admire all of the studio owners that I've had the pleasure of working for, because I recognize that it's not as simple as, asking people to teach classes at set times, although that is part of it. There's so much that goes into it. And I love that you touched on the communication, because you've got a team and you've got to set expectations for them and you've got to have standards that you hold people to. And it's not always fun because you have to have tough conversations and hold people accountable. But that is still important, even though it's not the super fun, you get to say you're the owner of your studio kind of thing.
Yeah, there are going to be some tough days and there are going to be some great days, and I think that, as long as you're going into things with the eyes wide open that way, you're going to do okay. But there are a lot of those skills, and, having a team is one of them, right? Deciding how to compensate people, what's fair, but also what's going to help your business to be profitable is one of those very sort of challenging things that we have to sort of navigate early on. Pricing your packages, how to and when to raise those prices, and then how to have the conversation with your clients, how to sell, really important factor, and then how to market. And that doesn't just mean social media. That means actually there's a lot of other things you can do to market your business that are actually, I think, far more effective on a quicker basis than social media is. And then there's, being able to manage your time. And the difference, I think, from going from a teacher to becoming a studio owner is that as a teacher, your top priority is 100% your teaching. So that, that 55 minutes or whatever it is that you teach your clients in that class or that one-on-one session. And it's all about being the best teacher you can be. But when you step into the role of a business owner, it's about making the business the best business it can be. And that might mean, yes, you absolutely probably need to have fantastic teachers and teaching, but that probably also means that you also need to perhaps think about, other parts of the business as well. And sometimes those other parts of the business are things that only you as the studio owner can do or put energy into or design or think about or be responsible for. And so it's also about where can you delegate, what makes the most sense, how do you delegate well, how do you set standards, how do you train people, how do you onboard people, how do you manage your clients, how do you build deep relationships with your clients, how do you engage them, how do you sell to them. That's one of the biggest shifts, I think, is that you go from having sort of one primary responsibility to then you wear a lot of hats. And I think, that is something that a lot of people are excited about because it sort of takes their direction into their own hands. Their ultimate ability to generate income becomes more into their own sort of domain, their control. And I think that with a little bit of structure and a little bit of support and a little bit of guidance, it is a very easy transition to make. It can be easy. But again, I think you have to go into eyes wide open, right? And you have to lean into it a little bit and know it might probably be quite uncomfortable at times. You're going to do things you never thought about doing before and you're going to have to figure out how to do. But it's an exciting time, and there's a lot of opportunity in our industry right now. And I think it's a fabulous time to be running and owning a Pilates studio.
Oh my gosh, yes. I am not by any means as far along as studio ownership, but I've stepped into more of a management role at Club Pilates in Chicago, being one of the lead instructors for the studios. It's just resonating so much with me that the things that made you a great Pilates teacher don't make you great in the next position. Because sure, your ability to do it yourself and figure it out is great when it's just for you and you're solving a problem in your class. But when you're suddenly responsible for teachers, you going in and doing everything for them is not a great thing to do. You want them to be able to solve things for themselves and understand why you would do something this way over that way, because you can't be every place at the same time and every studio and every class that's happening simultaneously every day of the week. When I'm talking with teachers who are maybe just finishing their teacher training and they're looking at places to teach, that all of the stuff that you're sharing about is what I tell them to look for when they're looking for studios to teach at. Hey, is the communication really clear? Are the teachers excited to teach at that studio? when you look at the pricing, because you can kind of guess how much you're going to make based on what is being charged for classes. If it's $10 mat classes, you may not be making the same as if you're at a place that has $150 sessions or things like that. So as a business owner, being so clear and so organized on that front is going to attract teachers to want to work with you, because when a teacher takes a class at your studio and talks to the teacher there, they're going to be like so thrilled about, their working experience at your studio versus, I've had experiences where, you don't have a lot of support from the owner, and it really is you go in and you do the whole thing by yourself and you leave, and there isn't that community and there isn't that communication. I know that when I'm telling people like what they should look for, what do you want out of the place that you're teaching? Like, do you want that support? Do you want that kind of hands-free-ness of it? Pilates is fantastic. And like you said, bottom line, more people doing it is a victory. And I want every studio that opens to be super successful and to meet the most people that it can and to help everyone's lives improve. The teachers that work there, the owner of the studio, and also the people who are taking the classes, taking advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. And, everyone is looking for different things. I think so. It's about finding the right spot for you and what your expectations are. Most folks would rather be at a studio that perhaps is well run and well managed. If you're at a studio where there is an owner who has invested in their skill set as a leader and as a marketer and as a business person, then your job is probably safe and you probably will be welcomed and treated very, very well. And because that person has invested in at least the knowledge of what makes a good business. And we know as a business owner that our biggest asset is our teachers. And so we want to make sure that our teachers are happy, and we want to make sure that our teachers are doing the best that they can do in that role. And so, great studio owners will make sure that their teachers are, not just financially happy, but because there's more that goes into this industry than just that, but that they feel like they are, perhaps have a career path, that there is progression for them, perhaps in the studio, that they are, given the appropriate amount of, freedom to teach the way that they want to teach, and that they are, communicated with in a really respectful way, and all of those good things that help make it really easy to work there, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. So many good things. Tell me about Spring 3, because does your podcast fall under Spring 3? What is hip hop happening in the Spring 3 section of your adventure? Because you've got this awesome podcast, and then you've got your business where you're doing the coaching as well.
So Spring 3 is the coaching and consulting arm of what I do. And oh my gosh, we have so many exciting things happening in that world. The majority of the way that I engage and support studio owners falls within my coaching program. And my primary coaching program is called Thrive. And we've built that program to support studio owners no matter what stage of business they're at, by giving the framework and the structure to support success. And so what is often missing is, yes, the information, yes, the tactics, but also the consistent focus that is needed to be able to show up as your best self in your business and not get pulled into the wrong direction, not start questioning things that perhaps don't really matter. Like, oh, there's a studio open down the street. Oh my gosh, I'm just going to sit here and put all my energy into worrying about that, right? And so instead of that, we create the structure and the environment that supports growth and progress. And no matter whether you are looking to expand your studio or just to fill your studio, or whether you want to take time out of your studio. And so the studio owners that I get to work with are all so incredibly, they have such great energy. They are so dedicated to helping their clients and showing up for their businesses. And we help them, support them. And I have done since the inception of Thrive, which was March of 2020, was when we first kind of pulled this group together. And we still have more than 10% of our members have been in the program since day one. Because over the course of that time, they've just leaned into the structure and the support and the resources that we do. And the program's adapted and evolved as time has gone on and based on what we're seeing they need. And so we give them playbooks for everything on how to build a referral program, host an open house, build out automations. We give guidance on which software is best for them. We have weekly coaching calls in the program, mastermind breakout sessions, trainings. And it's really sort of like the train that you step on that just leads you forward to, destination of wherever it is that you want to go. There's not one formula. There's not, you have to have a membership. It is, okay, let's talk about your business. We do a full business assessment. Where are you at in your business? And then here's our recommendations for where to focus next. And then let's build out just a 90-day timeline for how you want to take the time that you may have to focus on your business. And if you're teaching full time, that might just be 2 or 3 hours a week, right? So let's make sure that whatever you're doing in those 2 to 3 hours a week are having the biggest impact on growing your business. So that might be focusing on perhaps marketing. Maybe it's focusing on, let's make sure you understand what's happening with your profit margin, your numbers. Maybe it's focused on, okay, we need to hire and train teachers. So we help you figure out where do you take that very precious time that you have to focus on your business and make sure that it is optimized and you're not wasting that time or spending it worrying about something that is not actually helping you to grow.
I think it's a huge testament to your program that you've had people who've stuck with you through ups and downs and twists and turns in their business. Like, that is really incredible to have built that community of people who are, not just there to get answers, but willing to grow and really invest and live that process. Like, that's really remarkable.
Well, and we've had women come in who are, they built a business and then they want to have a baby. And so we build the business around them wanting to take time out. Not just to have the baby, right, which is how corporate America would look at it, but to take time out so that they can then spend time with their child, right, as they grow up.
Which would be ideal.
Which is how we want to do it. And so we've had, ladies who come in and had 1, 2 plus babies, or they've been able to take weeks out of their business to go and spend time with them, be with their kids, perhaps during the summer when they're off school. We've got ladies who are in there who have got aging parents and they need to take care of them. And being able to build a business that supports them and, all of us women at every stage of our life, because we're mostly women in this industry and men too. And I believe we should all build this business for whatever stage of life that we're at. And I think it's entirely possible, but I do think you have to have a little bit of structure in place to be able to facilitate that. And so it's been beautiful to see, really lovely to see that. And I'll say for me, on a very personal level, I think that is one of the most fulfilling things that I have been able to be a part of, is helping women to be able to have kids and take care of other people in their life and live their life and enjoy their life, and it not be a choice of either or. I think as a business owner, I think you should have that choice. Like, I want to be with my kids next week. I want to build a business that allows me to do that. So I think that is truly, one of the best parts of the whole thing. But we do have a fantastic community. And I will say that when you bring people together who are like-minded, have great energy, they are so generous and so supportive with each other. The friendships are so deep. In fact, last year we hosted our first, actually it's not the first time I've done it, but it is officially the first retreat we did for Thrive, my group coaching program. And it was just like best friends were made, and we all knew each other. We didn't have actually met, right? So I'd seen each other. We see each other every single week on Zoom for 5 years. And here we are now in a room together. There's no, let's settle in, let's get to know each other. We all know each other already. And we had a blast. So we're doing it again this year.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And what an inspiration that almost feels like something that's I thought it was too big to hope for, but you're telling me that it's completely not, that you can design a business in a way that you can have a life that is outside of your business, because it has been in the past a very zero-sum game. It's an either or. You're either going to put all of your time over here and have a family, which of course you want, and then, or you could have a business, which is your child, and you have to spend 1,000,000% of your life on it. So to be able to have a business that supports you, supports the people who work in it, supports the people who take advantage of your services, but also be able to have other priorities in your life is the dream. That is ideal.
Yeah.
So the fact that that's possible,
it is
just an absolute inspiration.
Yes.
You could do it. Exactly.
You can. It's allowed.
Exactly as you said, it takes planning and intentionality.
I will add, because I am a realist, is that it does mean that there is like, you have to accept perhaps like a B plus situation, right? And that means that like not every week is going to be great, right? And you may not see like double-digit growth when you're not working in your business because you're taking time off, right? But that might be okay, because what it means is that you still have a business and that you're able to go back to it and you can grow it and you know how to grow it. It's just that for that month where you decided to take some time off, business is a numbers game. If you're an earner in your business or a revenue generator and you're taking time off, then that is going to impact your numbers. But if you built your business well, your business can still generate revenue, right? And ideally, and that happens typically, honestly, when you have other people who work for you as well, right? That's the only way.
Because you can share the load of that.
Yeah. I really don't want to paint the picture that it's like this perfect, charming, like beautiful world. It's full of rainbows and everyone is like, you know, happy and like glowing every day. But, you know, let me tell you, when you've got 3 kids at home and I don't think you're glowing that much, but it does, you do still, it's not the same level of stress, and you get to decide, right, what your deadlines are and what your goals are. And you can take in consideration what is happening in your personal world and build your business and your goals around that. And so you get to decide, like, what does success look like for you? That is one of the most powerful things we do in the program is we say, okay, talk me through what success looks like. And everyone is different. But when we start to really think about what success looks like for ourselves, we can start to really tune out a lot of noise. Because some people will come to me and they'll say, well, you know, I don't want to build a franchise. I don't want to build 5 studios. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, tell me what you want.
Then don't.
Right? That's great. Cool. Like, what do you want? Let's do what you want. There's no rules around what equals success, right? So you decide what success looks like, and then let's build it, right?
I love that because, again, I'm saying the same thing to Pilates teachers where they're like, well, I want to be a Pilates teacher. And I'm like, well, okay, well, when do you want to teach? How many classes do you want to teach? Where do you want to teach? How do you want to teach? What kinds of people do you want to teach? And sometimes just sitting down and taking that first step and being like, what? Because like you said, you get all this motivation and you have this idea, but it's like kind of amorphous and it's not really pinned down. And you just are like, I want this thing, but without defining that thing, it's very difficult to make a path to that thing. So being able to be specific about what you want so that you can create your business or develop your business in a way that supports that dream. Like you said, you don't have to focus on the things that you don't want because you're very specific about what you do want and you're putting your energy there.
Yeah. You know what they say, where you put your energy, that's what grows, right? And you see that all the time. You know, we shift mindsets quite a lot inside of Thrive. It has just such a profound impact on the happiness of the studio owner, of the teacher, but also on their outcomes, their results, their growth is there.
I love it. So let's talk about where we see Pilates right now, because 2025 is a huge year and the landscape has shifted and changed, I think, a lot in the past 5 years. So tell me a little bit about maybe from your Thrive community or just in general, what are you seeing happening in the industry right now?
Yeah, a lot, right? It has evolved enormously. Pilates, I mean, the boutique fitness industry in and of itself has, grown massively in the last 5 years. Pilates as a part of that is just, wow. Crazy. Beyond what we ever thought we would see, I think, for many of us who, like you guys, been in this industry for a long time. We are seeing a lot of dollars flow in to building larger brands and franchises. And as we are seeing them pop up across every corner in every town, every city in the country and around the world. And what that means is that there's demand for this, right? What that means is that there are people who have done actually a lot of research and they are seeing that there is demand. And we are seeing still that there is continuing to be demand for Pilates and for movement. And that's only a good thing. And I think that a lot of people get scared about the growth A lot of people it actually brings up all sorts of feelings for lots of different people of different ways. But I think that as any teacher in this industry, this is a great time to be a Pilates teacher. You're in demand. You are needed and in demand. And so the best that you can be at that will only help you grow and be able to have a really fruitful career. We're seeing the big franchises, the big corporations building out large number of studios. But on a sort of the grassroots level, I'm helping studio owners open new studios every single week. Just last week, I had 3 conversations with a teacher who was wanting to move out of their home studio or were teaching somewhere in another space and were looking to move into a larger space or have their first brick and mortar studio. And so there is a lot of activity in the industry right now. And I think one of the things that, I think everyone is talking about competition. It exists as a business owner specifically. It is a lot of competition. And I think one of the things that is really critical if you're finding yourself in that situation where you feel like there is a lot of competition, that doesn't necessarily mean that your business is not going to work at all. And it also doesn't mean that you have to charge bottom dollar for what you want to do. But what it does mean is that you do have to be able to build a brand around your studio. And that brand has to showcase the value that your studio adds to your clients' lives. And that means that you have to be exceptionally good at marketing and the value of what you do and knowing how to communicate that with an audience that is going to be interested in being your client. And so if you are not investing in your marketing skills and learning a little bit about how to communicate and how to build a brand as a teacher, and if you're looking to open a studio, then that's what I would do in the 12 months preceding opening your studio, is get savvy with that, because there is competition, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, that makes it a tougher environment, but it also means that there's opportunity. There's more people out there who want Pilates. And it's not just about showing up and opening a door. It's also about, overcoming all the noise and being able to find the right people for your business. It's not okay just to, put a sign up and open the door. We do have to be proactive about marketing in this world, which is something that we probably always should be doing anyway. But I think especially if you're in an area where there's a lot of competition. I'm not seeing this slow down. I'm not seeing the demand slow at all. I'm seeing, I have many studio owners, and their biggest problem is that they have fully waitlisted classes. And so I don't see this slowing down soon.
I mean, I definitely agree that the demand increase has been huge. Like, I jokingly say all the time, because I am lucky to teach in a studio that is very good at articulating the value of what they're offering. So I do have nice and full classes. And so I'll say all the time, the word is out, Pilates is in, because it's in the mainstream consciousness. It's not just this fringe, it's really good for dance conditioning or something like that. It really is. I have clients who are coming to me who are recovering from a knee replacement, and also clients who are coming to me because their favorite pop star is doing Pilates, And so the interest is there, and it's not all rehab, and it's not all, get fit, and it's not all super intense athletic people looking for Pilates. It really is this wide range. I love that you said, even though there's competition and that does make it more difficult, we're not all talking to the same person when we're asking people to come to our studio, that people have needs, and we fit niches, some better than others. And there's definitely interest.
Yes, the audience has grown and the number of studios has grown. And so, it's still a lot of demand, and it's still a good time to own a studio, really good time.
Yeah. And I love also that you said, because I get excited every time I talk to someone on the podcast, I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. That I love that you said that in the 12 months leading up to opening your studio, because this isn't, like you said, that it just goes from, the paperwork alone takes time, but it's not something where you're just like, all right, I'm going to open a business and then it's there. Like, it takes a lot of prep work. And I appreciate that you're putting that in kind of in the scheme of things, that it's not just even the running the business. It's like, how do we even get to the business opening its doors and then inviting people in?
Yeah. I think there is definitely a lag when it comes to marketing efforts. And that lag is long, not like a day or a week. It's like many months. I always say, if you're thinking about opening a studio, the best time to start your marketing was yesterday, because you can't start early enough to build an audience, especially with, the access we have to digital media. There's no bad time to start to build a following, and it all helps. It all really helps. So if you're sitting on your hands waiting for the sign to go up before you start posting on Instagram, then I would say that's a shame. I would say let's start now. The more proactive you can be in the environment that we're in, especially if you don't have a tremendous amount of funding behind you in terms of marketing. If you're not going to run a massive pre-opening digital media campaign that is professionally run by ad specialists, then we have to get savvy with all of our organic efforts.
Yeah. And I love also, because I do think that Pilates, and obviously biased working in Pilates, but I do think that there is like a long-term demand that we're going to see. I don't think that this is like a flash in the pan fad with like a very silly piece of workout equipment that everyone's doing for one summer and then it kind of like fizzles out. Like, I think that Pilates itself has endured to like near extinction to stick around. I just love that it's broadening its appeal to people, because there are, as with all things, like I feel like every mom and every show on Netflix does Pilates, and there's always like a line where like the mom's in Pilates, but they'll see her when she gets home or something.
Yeah.
It's in people's consciousness in a way that I think, because Pilates teachers have really, like, it's not a one size fits all thing that we're giving people. Correct. It is so client centered. It's so focused on, the people that we're working with and the people whose lives are being absolutely changed. I see a little bit more like enduring legacy of Pilates sticking around, especially when we have digital media and we can connect with people in an instant anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Well, we know we can do Pilates any age. We've seen it, right? I know I had clients who were well into their 90s when I taught, and clients who were, just in high school even. And so we know it covers all ages. And I think we look at the wellness industry as a whole as well, because that has an impact on our industry too. And we know people are more savvy and conscious than ever about, let's throw it out there, the word of the day, longevity, right? And how many more people are really focused on that. And with the growth in the number of wearables, of data tracking that happens, we know just people are just more keen and interested in being healthy than they've ever been before. We look at the data around sort of millennials and Gen Z and how those folks view Pilates and fitness in general and wellness. That's where a tremendous amount of the industry growth is coming from. And so, anyone, I would imagine anyone who really enjoys Pilates in their 20s and 30s is only going to enjoy it more in their 40s and 50s and 60s, because it's so accessible, right? Especially if you know a little bit about what it can do and how to do it. It is such a lifelong movement practice. And so I completely agree. I think it's for sure going to be, is here to stay. I have no doubt. And, I've been doing Pilates. I took my first Pilates class in New York City when I was 23. And, I'm still here, right? Many, many, many years later. I've got everyone I know doing it, and they're not doing it because I've like coerced them into coming to a class with me. It's because they are like, oh, I want to try this place and this new Pilates studio that's open, and everyone is doing it. And so, the cat's out the bag. Everybody knows.
It's like positive peer pressure.
Yes.
Like it's peer pressure that improves your life instead of helps you make bad choices. So I love that.
Yeah.
I love that for us.
For sure. Yeah, it's a great, and I think, on top of that, it does have a lovely sense of community. Most of the studios that offer Pilates are smaller groups. And I think that also helps a lot with navigating just like the craziness of the world that we live in and how online it all is. And then, you get to go to a class of 10 people or 12 people or 8 people or whatever it is, or even just one-on-one. And you get to actually chat with people face to face. It's like, whoa, what's this about? It creates that anchor point, I think, for so many people in the world that are in today, especially for folks that remote work. I do think boutique fitness and Pilates is going to be strong for a long time.
Yeah, no, it is a good moment to be in. And I think also, as more studios open and more studio owners are in the space, like as a teacher, you're also in a really great position to like work with some of the best people in the industry as well. I'm very spoiled in Chicago that I have lots of options and lots of super cool studios and super cool people. But even in more rural areas, as people recognize that a studio is one way of having a studio, or maybe it's a community space where you're hosting classes kind of by yourself and you are your own business, but it's not maybe a full studio just yet, or even you have an online space. Like there's so many ways to be a Pilates teacher and to have a Pilates studio. And so I'm kind of excited to see this. Like I've worked for a studio that only had a virtual component and I only did virtual classes, and I had people all over the country, which is like wild that we can do that. Yeah. But I've also, worked for brick and mortar, and then, all of the excitement that comes when a new studio opens. And I know that that's like the big fun thing. And then you have to like do the day-to-day forever and ever and ever. But like, it's so fun. We've got a studio opening in Lakeview, and like, it's so exciting to be able to introduce a new neighborhood of people to something that is just going to make their lives better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. What a great feeling, right? Yeah,
it is. And like, I feel so lucky that, the work that we do in any capacity, from teacher to owner to even yourself as a coach in this space as well, that like, it's just wins for everyone. Oh, yeah. Like that's what, like every person who comes to a class, every teacher who's hired, every studio that opens is just making the world better and brighter. And I'm so appreciative as a teacher to the business owners that have put their time and their intention and their efforts into making these things happen, because I don't know if I have that personality. So I'm so glad that there are people who have it, who are doing that so that I can shine in the role that I'm in.
Yeah, there's a place for everybody, for sure. Maybe one day. I don't
know. Sometimes I'm just really tired. I'm just tired. Oh my goodness.
Fair enough.
But I know. I think about it. And then I talk to someone awesome like you, and I'm like, but you could though. And I'm like, oh man, just one thing at a time.
Could be all yours. Could be all yours. I mean, you have to want it. You do have to want it. But yeah, it could be very fulfilling.
So what is next for you? You're doing all these amazing things for all of these other amazing people. How do you see Spring 3 evolving? How do you see your podcast evolving? Like, what is next for you?
Well, we are going to keep on doing what we do best, which is supporting our amazing group of studio owners and helping them to continue to evolve and grow and navigate, whatever life throws our way. And, we have evolved the program a lot, Thrive, to be as much support as we can possibly figure out how to give our studio owners. And so we're going to continue to do that. But we've got our retreat coming up at the beginning of November this year in sunny Florida, which will be a lovely spot. Every part of the word retreat is exactly what it is. So I'm so excited. We are continuing to, look for all the different ways that we can help support our studio owners. And, as much as I can see and work with those people who are passionate about their movement practice, that's what keeps us going at Spring 3 is, when we meet with a studio owner who wants to just get what they do into more people's bodies, right? Move more people, then they're in the perfect place when they work with us. It is what drives us all. And we don't overlook that fact when we work together. It's not just about the numbers. It's not just about any of that stuff. It's about, hey, like, look what happened in your business this week, right? Look how many people you helped. Look how many people moved their bodies because you opened your studio and because you showed up and because you taught and then because you trained that teacher or brought that teacher on board to teach and because you hosted that amazing workshop and had a little community gathering afterwards. How many people left feeling fantastic about themselves and their life and community and all these things and all of the ripple effects that happen. And so, yeah. I want to just keep doing more of that.
I mean, that is a lot, to be fair. That is already quite a bit. What does if I can ask, what does your business look like in terms of like who helps you do all of the things that you do? Because I'm pretty sure that you're Wonder Woman, but at the same time, like I imagine that there's
fabulous team.
Some help.
I have a fantastic team. Yeah. I mean, I learned early on, I found that I was the bottleneck in my business. I am the bottleneck in my business. And I still am, actually. And I realized that I have 3 kids. I can't keep adding more hours to this. I need to have someone else add more hours because this business needs more hours to continue to deliver what I want it to deliver. And I learned early on that I need other people to help me. And then it's about figuring out the right mix of people. You learn as you go a little bit about what you're good at delegating and what needs to fall under your responsibility. Everything that I do and have done, I would say, since over the last 3 years, I look to grow in a way that is independent of me because I'm at my limit for how much time I can give the business. And so it's sort of like, okay, so how can I do more of this without me doing more hours, right? And that's called scale. And we like scale a lot. And now I'm adding other folks into my business. And so I have got behind the scenes. So for my podcast, I have a fabulous virtual assistant who, oh my gosh, she's incredible. She's been with me for 3 years. She takes care of a lot of the operational stuff. She does all of my social media, my graphic design. And she's an angel. The business couldn't function without her. And I also have a podcast editor who takes care of do all that because I can get my head around doing. So I have got a podcast editor and a VA that helps me with all of my social media and 3 folks who work with me and work with my members inside of my Thrive program. And I've got like 2, one is a full-time customer success, member success person who helps me to help them or helps them to navigate their business journey. And she helps point them in the right direction, gives them support with different tools, all of that stuff. And then I've got another coach who joins our calls and is an extra kind of sounding board for business advice, but also she is focused on hiring and HR. And so she has a lot of the knowledge around the legalities around all of that, which is incredibly helpful, as anyone who has hired anyone will know, or managing anyone will know. And then I also have an executive assistant who works very closely with me, and she's sort of like my second set of hands. So everything that I do, she also knows how to do, which is really helpful because that means that I can hand off to her and all of those sorts of things. So we've got a really wonderful team. You get lucky and unlucky sometimes, and I'm very lucky with having a great team. And they are the magic behind the scenes for sure.
But it also, like, I love that you have the team. And the reason I asked about it as like a thing, because I think a lot of people think they have to do everything by themselves and they don't always realize that there are things that they can really add value in when they're doing. And some things like editing podcasts doesn't really help people the same way as recording the podcast or brainstorming the topic for the podcast or doing the research and getting the super cool person to talk on something in the podcast. I ask that just to show and demonstrate and also continue to remind myself that it's good to have people who are really great at things that you're not really great at or can do things faster and free you up to do other amazing things. Because when you talk about scaling, that's also part of scaling, is that eventually there are 24 hours in a day and you've got 2 hands and 3 kids, and that's a long math equation.
Right, exactly. That's a very, very long math equation for sure. Yeah, and I think, you got to know, I think hiring is the second biggest challenge after opening a studio, honestly, because there's a lot that goes with that, even the getting your head around the idea that now you're the boss when perhaps you've never been a boss before. How to be a boss. I see a lot of train wreck situations where people have this idea of what they should be as a boss, and they don't have to be. Do they have to be someone who is bossy or not, right? Or how do you not be? And then they spend a lot of time trying not to be the boss when they are the boss, and people are hoping they're going to be the boss and tell them what to do, but then they don't want to tell people what to do because they don't want to be the boss. And that whole thing is another thing. And so you navigate that and you learn along the way a little bit. And maybe if you've been very lucky, you've had a great role model and you've seen what's possible when you've had really great leadership. And that means that you can lead people and you can train people and you can delegate and communicate well. And I think one of the most important things that you can do whenever you are delegating or hiring or creating a role or sharing the load is to really be clear about what it is that you're delegating, what task, what done looks like, what not finished looks like, and then, getting clear on what the sort of the communication circle is. When does the feedback loop start and end? And I find that those are the sorts of things that often trip people up when it comes to hiring. And so the more transparent that you can be and clear about all of that, the better. But yes, team is key.
Because when it works, it's fantastic. But when it doesn't work, it is pulling teeth. And that's really tough. So I'm glad that you've got strategies to nudge in a more positive direction.
You want to hire, I always say, you want to hire people for not just their skill set. You want to also hire people for, who they are and what they care about, which is, if you're going to be working closely with someone, you have to get along with them and you have to kind of be on the same wavelength. You know what I mean? Sometimes I see studios will hire teachers just because they need a teacher, and it's just not a good fit for anyone. Mm-hmm. And then, things go south pretty quick and everyone feels rubbish at the end of it. And so, it's important, like you said earlier, you've got to find the right fit for you, for the business.
Definitely. Seran, is there anything else you want to chime in and share? Last parting thoughts?
No, I would like to say that I think that, as a Pilates, you are doing the most important work there is to do. And no matter how you feel at the end of a day when you've been teaching all day, the ripple effects of your work go far and deep. And you don't see that every day, but it does. And it is important work that you're doing. Kudos to all of you who are listening, who are teachers and teach. Keep doing it. It is needed, more needed now than ever before. And I'm so grateful to all the teachers because we are continuing to see just how amazing this method really is. It's fantastic.
Thanks so much, Seran.